All right, welcome to our weekly Zoom call, everybody. Tonight we've got Cam and Jean on here, and we will be doing a client spotlight with Erika Schlotthauer, who's been with TLF for over a year and a couple months or so. Is that right?
Yeah.
Year and a month. I think you started right around November, December of 2021. So we'll be doing a little client spotlight on that. Also, big news that I don't know if it's necessarily big news, but I'm going to start posting this as a podcast just to make it easier for everybody to listen to. Again, I don't really intend on that growing to anything. It's more so to make it easier for people to listen on the way to and from work, whenever you're doing cardio and stuff like that. So it'll probably just post on Apple and on Spotify. I'll probably still share it to YouTube just to have it, the opportunity to be listened to on all things. But so I'm excited for that. But anyway, you're not going to hear much of me talking today. We're going to be talking to Erika and her journey with TLF, before, during, and all that good stuff. So Erika, how was your Monday?
It's been okay. It's been kind of I was telling you, like, I had kind of some unexpected tribulations over the weekend that we've been kind of dealing with. My fiance's car got stolen yesterday, which is really unfortunate. And so we've been dealing with that. But other than that, it's been great.
Because obviously I've never had that happen to me. Hopefully it never does. You just call insurance and they just kind of take you through the steps from there.
Yeah, so we actually called car insurance. That's probably straightforward, but we also called our renter's insurance that we have on our apartment because they cover the stuff that was stolen in the car. So we've been dealing with two insurance situations.
At least you're covered. As much stress that is, at least you have
Yeah.
things in place to kind of cover you guys' asses, because he had some tools and stuff stolen too, right?
Right, yeah.
Stressful stuff. Did it affect your day in terms of, did you have a workout plan that you had to skip? Did you have meals that you were like, screw these meals, I want to eat everything, make me feel
So
awful?
today I was good. I did fine today, but yesterday, absolutely, yeah. I actually ended up under eating, not on purpose. Just I missed a bunch of stuff because we were dealing with police and all that stuff. And
Oh, so you started dealing with that yesterday, and that's kind of just transferred over.
yeah, so we found out that his car was gone yesterday morning when he went out to go pick something up from somewhere, I
Gotta be
guess.
one
And
of the worst feelings
um,
that
well, I was gone. I was at an appointment myself, and he called me and was like, "There's broken glass just in my parking spot. The car's gone." So, but then they ended up finding the car later yesterday, a few hours or 12 hours later. And so it was just a crazy day.
yeah.
There was a lot happening.
That's tough. That's tough. I can't imagine that stress. Well, all right, cool. Let's go ahead and dive on into it. Sorry for that stress. Hopefully the rest of this year goes smooth for you, though. We've got holidays and stuff like that coming up, which we'll
Yeah.
probably talk about in just a second. So real quick, Erika, kind of tell us, who you are, what do you do, family, kids, all that good, get to know you stuff, and then we'll kind of dive in deeper into your actual journey.
So I'm Erica. I'm 28. I don't have any kids. It's me, my fiance Brian, and our two cats, which we consider our children. I am a therapist. I'm a social worker by training, but have gone into the mental health field. I specialize in personality disorders, but I have started seeing couples and doing a lot of different adult work. In my free time, I like to bake and play video games and read, um, and travel.
Travel, there you go. You just
Yeah.
got back from Florida a couple months ago, right?
Right. Yeah. And we'll be going to California in February.
That's right. That's right. That's exciting.
Yes.
There you go. What so you're a therapist. Obviously, I know that. I mean, you kind of chat about different things of that nature. How long you been in therapy?
I graduated grad school in August of 2021, so about a year and a half. But I've been in the field doing social work for 5 years now. I was a children's case manager at Truman Medical Center
I was gonna
for.
say you started with children mainly, right? Or just under 18. Is that right?
Right, yeah. Well, so at Truman, they have it's the kids program, but they cover transition age people. So it was actually up to age 25. I ended up kind of being more in the teenage young adult category, but I worked with them. And then my first job as a therapist was in the same program. So yeah, I originally started out as a child therapist. My cat has the zoomies if you can hear
No,
noise. happening.
I'm sure
Um,
my dog will start building or breaking down our house. I don't know what he's going to be doing in a little bit. You're good.
yeah, all the animal sounds. So, yeah, started out as a child therapist and then was like, this ain't it, and ended up working with adults, which I think is much more for me.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like I would struggle more seeing kids go through it because a lot of the times it's not by their own accord. I mean, not that adult trauma is by their fault either, but they have a little more control of what's going on versus a kid who I'm sure that no matter how much hard work you're doing with them, it's tough because they're still going home to potentially a situation that's only reinforcing why they're there in the first place.
oh, completely. Yeah. And a lot of the time, like my experience was I would work, like put in a lot of work with a kiddo, and then like parents or other like adults in their environment would like undo the the work or like discourage the
Yeah.
like work that I was doing with them.
Yeah.
Like sometimes not a lot of the time, not even intentionally. But it was just, yeah, it just felt like an uphill battle. It's so much, I think it's a lot easier to just kind of work with somebody like one on one. And when you work with kids, like to do good work, you need to work with the parents too.
Which is, yeah, definitely true. And they might not necessarily be bought into what you're doing. Like maybe the kid is even, was that, I'm sure you still have to deal with it a lot, even dealing with adults, but is that hard to compartmentalize and leave work at work and not take home some of that trauma to just, your home, like
So
mentally?
you get, or I guess I should speak for myself. I got better with that as time went on. Like when I first started at Truman as a case manager, and Truman is the highest, like the catchment area or the jurisdiction that they serve is the highest crime, highest poverty
Right.
area of Kansas City. And so I was like, it was shocking and really
You were in
jarring
it.
at
Yeah, you were
first.
in it.
Yeah, and just, I mean, given my background, like I did not, like my life did not
Mhm.
consist of any of the things that I was seeing. So, at first I really struggled with that. And I was having a lot of meltdowns in my boss's office. But over time, like she really kind of helped me to learn how to, yeah, like you said, like compartmentalize or like create boundaries, better boundaries
Yeah.
between work
Yeah.
and you kind of have to be able to do that because if not, like you have no longevity in this
You'll,
field.
yeah, I was gonna say you'll burn out well
Yeah, you
before.
can't function.
Yeah. That definitely makes sense.
Yeah.
I get that. Well, cool. Thanks for kind of sharing that background with the therapy stuff. I'm sure that we'll kind of tie into some of our discussions a little bit later on in the call. But so tell us a little bit about, when did you start getting into health and fitness? You're also a vegetarian. So, when did that start? What was the kind of the catalyst for, turning to be vegetarian? And then also obviously just, when did you get into the gym originally?
So those are kind of two different timelines. So, I became vegetarian when I was 12,
Yep.
um, due to a bet with my brother, um, that I have still never gotten paid for. And I recently started eating fish, so I guess I'm like kind of pescatarian, I guess
Yep.
now. I started that maybe like 5 years ago, 4 years ago. Um, so, and then with the fitness part of it, I was always kind of overweight throughout my childhood and into adulthood. And then a guy that I was dating at the time was a bodybuilder and was working for the fitness company RP. And so I kind of got into his style of training, which was like periodized training. And he taught me how to like count macros, weigh my food, do all of that. And so I really was into that hardcore for about 2 years. I lost a ton of weight. I was super strong. And I was in the gym like 5, 6 days a week for those 2 years.
Yep.
And then COVID hit. And then that went way downhill and I ended up heavier than before I ever started to begin with. So and then that's the point in time where I came to you.
Yeah, yeah, and you've crushed it. You've crushed it since then. So I guess a perk then for you was that you kind of came into it with you'd already knew a super rigid lifestyle when it came to health and fitness. You knew how to track your macros, which is obviously that's a it's not a barrier to entry, but it's an obstacle that some people they feel like they have to learn. If they don't learn it, then they're not gonna be successful. They can't, do what they need to be
Right.
doing. or it's just, it's just one of those hurdles that you just got to kind of get over at some point. So you already kind of came in with that. You already were used to, at least knew how to weigh your food and do all that good stuff. And then obviously just being a vegetarian or being a pescatarian or being vegan or any of that stuff, like it already comes with having kind of not rules, but to an extent rules and routines when it came to your food, because you can't really be consistent with that lifestyle without having some sort of routines in place.
Right.
You kind of agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think I have a little bit different of an experience just because I think at least most of the people that I know that are vegetarian or pescatarian like started that when they were adults. And
Mhm.
so having started when I was 12, like I didn't really know any different. Like I have never bought like chicken or beef for myself, like as like grocery shopping and food preparation
Yeah.
and all that stuff. Like I've just always done. And like even preparing fish a few years ago was like a learning curve. So like I
Yeah.
didn't have a big
For sure.
transition with that. So that was kind of built into my like conception of like food and meal prep and all that stuff.
No, that definitely makes sense. So one question, because you said, you'd went from being overweight to then being in really good shape, and then COVID happening, and then getting some weight back. I've seen it go two ways. Where one, you've had that experience in your back pocket, so it's easier to kind of step into it and get things in check. And then I've seen it the other way, where you've been there before. So when you get started back into the gym, and you get started back into, tracking your macros, whatever the case is, you feel like, shit, I did all this before and I got in such good shape and it worked so well, but now I feel like I'm so far back and I have so far to go to get back to where I was, that then that becomes an even bigger block, more so than ever not even having done it in the first place, because now you know that you fell off and it's just hard to get back on track. So was that easier for you? Was that hard? Did you go through any of that of like, shit, I used to be so strong and now I'm not anymore, or whatever that might look like?
Oh, you've been on the receiving ends of many of my shame spirals related to that.
Eric,
Um,
Eric and I also train in person. We were doing online well before we started in person, and then we started in person, what, like 6 months ago, 7 months ago? I have no idea.
yeah, something like
Okay,
that.
cool. That makes sense. Uh,
So I
that was
think you said it really well, actually. So like on one hand, like I had the knowledge going into it, so it wasn't like I knew what to expect with the macro counting. And even with working out, like I fortunately like came from somebody who taught like really was really really strict on like technique with lifting um and just like how to structure a workout and whatnot. Like I knew a lot about that, so that really helped me. Like I don't think maybe I had as big of a like
learning
learning
curve.
curve, yeah, like related to just this strictly like information side of it. But oh my God, like the script that I had running in my head, like the reason it took me so long to reach out to you and to get back to it was because that really fall from
Yeah.
where I was before, like gave me so much ammunition to just like beat myself up over it. And I did all the time.
Yeah.
I just was like, like I did that. It took so much work to get to where I was. And like, I
Yeah.
just don't want to do that again. It's not worth it. And also, like you said, like it was extremely strict. It was very, very like just like pedal to the metal. Like
Mhm.
there was not a focus on balance at
That's
all.
that's how it was prior.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. Like 2 years before COVID,
Yeah.
when I was really into fitness. Like in hindsight, that was not like a sustainable
No,
thing
yeah.
for me. I mean, it is for some people, it was not for me.
I think
And
I think that I think the strictness and learning how to do it and developing the discipline that it takes to kind of get to a certain level, it helps because it really lays down the groundwork in a much faster way than if you just enter it with total flexibility, because you're never like developing true discipline to this of doing
right.
it day after day after day. Um, and that sounds difficult, obviously, but again, it kind of lays down the foundation, because now you work through some of that difficult time, but now you're kind of getting to this point where you understand the discipline, you understand the things that it takes to do it, but you can integrate and mix in more flexibility. That's where I am in my journey, that I can lock it the fuck in and be totally locked in for 6 months or for 6 weeks or whatever that time period looks like. But I also know how to balance things out, have fun, enjoy life, have cheat meals and all that stuff without it completely throwing me off. And that's kind of where you seem to have gotten to now.
Yeah, and I wasn't before. I mean, I had some like cheat meals, or, I would eat out or whatever, like very occasionally though during those 2 years. And so I just don't think that I learned um
Downside of it.
no, or like how to deal with like disruptions, because when like the ultimate disruption, which was COVID, like came in, like I had no idea how to cope with it. And I just like everything went out the window and I just backslid super bad.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. And I feel like a lot, I mean, that's obvious. That's surprisingly, I thought my business was going to go downhill because of COVID and after COVID. And I feel like it also reawakened people and understanding like how important health actually is and how much we actually need to take care of ourselves. Especially because it goes hand in hand with mental health. Not that that's the end all be all, like doesn't matter that your physique is healthy. It doesn't mean your mind's going to be healthy, but it helps with that stuff. And it allows you to find a better balance. We kind of talk about that a lot with mental health versus physical health and how they kind of help each other out, but they are
Right.
separate. But yeah, I think that COVID did do a good job and kind of showing that. Obviously, not in all cases, but it seems like at least whatever data that I've seen could be right or wrong, but it seems like the unhealthy people dealt with it or got sicker or more frequently were sick and whatnot. So I feel like that's kind of got to be a spotlight that, hey, if we just take care of ourselves, that we're going to improve our chances of being healthy through a pandemic or really just through anything that's going on.
Right.
Um, I think it's key. So I think it sucked, obviously, and it kind of put you in this state. But I'm big on not being angry about whatever is kind of in our journey versus how can we learn from those missteps. If COVID was happening again, if COVID was happening tomorrow, or whatever the equivalent of that would be, I think you're in a better position with more tools. The experience from COVID the very first time, even if you hadn't worked with me, just the experience from COVID would hopefully be a learning curve. Like that didn't go well for me last time. How can I avoid that?
Right.
So I think those are all key. And like you said, I think it's a good thing that now you're understanding the balance and how to adapt and not, you can't always be 100% spot on. And those who come into this thing, you're going to fail because nobody can be perfect with it. What did Cameron say here? Cameron says, I remember taking a barbell and plates out to my driveway. It was so weird when folks driving by wouldn't slow down and stare. Yeah, Cameron, my dad did the same thing. He had, luckily had some stuff that I'd bought when I was young in the garage that he was just in there hammering out. In his home gym, I think my apartment gym had like a cable system and some dumbbells, more than a lot of people had. So that was nice. I was downtown, so I'd go on a lot of walks and runs and stuff like that. So yeah, COVID made shit difficult. Erika, did you not have access to any sort of a gym at that time? I mean, they were all supposed to be shut down, but some did, some didn't.
I I think I had was I a Genesis member at that point? I think I was, and
So
they
they
were
were
just
shut
totally
down
shut
for
down for a while. And so that, yeah, and I also like I think I was looking for an excuse to not.
still.
Yeah, and so because again, like I just didn't have that balance, and I think it was already wearing on me, like that lifestyle, and like
Yeah, probably
I
so.
was already getting a little bit resentful. So I just that was the out that I needed essentially, and I just
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, since we're on the topic of COVID, I feel like it's also should have made you hopefully realize is that, control the controllable. So in that situation, could we all go to the gym and smash, our workouts like you had been? No. But that's when we look at that hierarchy of needs, obviously, and okay, well, we could all sleep very well during COVID because nobody had to go anywhere. Stress for some people was obviously through the roof. For other people, it was like shit, I got a time to not be stressed about certain stuff. That was kind of the way I went with it because I was a teacher, so I didn't have to do a whole lot. But then outside of that, it teaches you that, well, shit, I can't work out, but I can control sleep. I can control my nutrition. Hopefully, we're not going out to eat during that time and stuff. So I feel like that, if that was happening again, all my TLFers in here would be crushing it because, hey, that's just less social outings and more time to focus on coming out of COVID, or whatever that pandemic would be in a better route.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that.
Definitely. So when you started TLF, because you started around, this time last year, we already kind of talked about some of those struggles, the mental struggle of knowing that you used to be this high level, high performing in terms of the gym and nutrition, and all that shit. And then now you're back with me after a couple of year hiatus from being on point. And that was the struggle. What were some other struggles? Like when you first signed up, what was the biggest struggle, maybe that first month? I sometimes lose track of what my original struggles were because it was 10 years ago. And what seems so trivial and so easy to me now is some people's biggest struggles when you're first getting started in your first week. So if you can recall any of those struggles, what were they?
So I think like the ones that are coming to mind are related to the juxtaposition again between like the two like my previous
Yeah. Okay.
experience with gym and with eating. So the like how I learned to like nutrition wise, what I learned before is very different than like how you teach nutrition and what you encourage with that. And so I think that was hard because before, you and I have talked about this before, but so before, like my pre-workout meal was a Pop-Tart or Fruity Pebbles. And
So
like
you were, while I do flexible dieting and if it fits your macros, I only do that to an extent.
you
Um,
you the biggest thing is like you actually care about micronutrients and health. And like there was no like digestion was never a part of the conversation or even anything I was thinking about. Like I couldn't even tell you what my digestion was like back then because I just was not like
you
paying.
weren't thinking of it, you weren't mindful of it.
Right. And so that was kind of difficult at first. Like I was like cauliflower rice. Like I was like not into like not into that at first, but actually over time like I've become really really thankful for that
Yeah.
and am like much more like like naturally gravitate towards that too. But that was hard at first. That was really different for me.
Yeah. Especially I'm sure because when you were locking it, oh, he does, if it's your macros, flexible dieting, I can go back to the same old tasty shit that I was eating that I could hit my macros with. And obviously, being vegetarian as well or pescatarian, whatever the case is, like it's more restrictions for you. It's less variety for me. So when I'm like creating on a diet plan, like I I get struggle with that as well. Generally, when I'm doing any sort of a diet approach, carb cycling, like whatever the case is, it's stuff that I have personally tried before and kind of went through. Because I feel like, if I put somebody on keto, if I put somebody on vegetarian diet, it's hard to give, any of my experience because I've only done it with clients versus with myself. So in that situation, it sometimes is difficult to kind of find that stuff. And that's why your communication back and forth on like, hey, I'm kind of tired of this, or like, what are some other options with this? And that's kind of touching base and going back and forth. Whereas some people, if they're like, well, I'm tired of this, they just not going to check in. And then that check-in is going to lead to them just saying, well, screw it. When in reality, all we had to do was have a quick conversation about it. And you kind of express your feelings. I express, my purposes of this, but hey, let's find a plan B or plan C for you that works. And then we're able to kind of get through that. So I think that your communication with me, and maybe that's being as a therapist, maybe that's just, the foundation you have with every relationship. But I think that's helped us kind of work through some of those initial struggles, knowing that we've kind of get to this point.
Oh yeah, and I mean, I did that sometimes too though. Like sometimes I just was like, "Oh, I had a bad week. I'm just not going to check in because then if I don't check in, it doesn't make it real."
Yeah.
Where like I don't have to answer to Marcus for me like making poor choices that I know were poor. Or like not like you said like not communicating about foods I don't like and using that as a reason to avoid like eating healthy, like choosing to eat my meals.
Yeah.
So I did that too some, but I just realized pretty quickly that like this is like I'm getting in my own way essentially, like I'm putting barriers up in an already like what would already be kind of a difficult process in the beginning, like I am choosing to add to that and make it harder. So like why am I doing that?
Yeah. No, 100%. Well, all good points on that stuff. Okay, cool. So that's kind of, obviously where our struggles were at then. So then kind of speed us up to kind of where we've been at the last, I would say just going off of my own memory, the first 6 months or so were kind of up and down, up and down. We had a good week followed by a bad week, 2 good weeks followed by an off week or whatever the case is.
Yes.
Sometimes in the gym, it was kind of up or down as well. It's like, I'm here with you in person once a week, but then I'll kind of fall off the rest of the week and not be as consistent with that. So when do you think you really started kind of locking in and really started building that good momentum? What was
I
kind of the switch that you flipped, maybe mentally, or what was it that kind of flipped your switch?
So initially it was I got engaged in July and so I then had like a date kind of to push me and I had something tangible to work towards to kind of like inform the goal that I had. But honestly, like that's not what's kept me going, to be honest. Oh, thank you, Krista. Um, that's not what kept me going, actually.
That was the gear shift. That was what was like, all right, we're gonna start crushing this now. And then
Yeah, well, I knew that like I was not going to be able to, continue effing around for another 6 months and then call you or then, let you
yeah,
know that, oh, hey, I'm ready to like
go
stop
on.
messing around.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
knew that I wasn't going to be able to do that like the right way to do it or the way that like was sustainable.
The
And
average person is going to say, hey, 3 months away from whatever their big event is, hey, let's get me ready for this. I'm like, well, you've been dicking around for the past 9 months. Like, we
right.
had the past 9 months, you could have been coasting into it at this point, but now we have to do this crash thing, which is never good on metabolism, never good on hormones. And shit, if you've been screwing around for the past 9 months, your gut might be out of whack, your stress levels might be out of whack, and now we have all these big dominoes to push up, and we don't have enough time to knock them all over. So you did it the right way by being like, okay, I got a year plan for this stuff. And even then, just to pause you real quick, I know that like looking at your progress pictures, July of this year versus, last year in November, December, there's still, even though you were never like consistent 4 weeks in a row, 5 weeks in a row, 6 weeks in a row, it was kind of up and down. Just by treading that water and by having 2 out of 4 really good weeks in there, we were able to see a lot of progress even in that amount of time. Maybe not so much on the scale, but just body composition was starting to change.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because when did you go to Florida? That was
September.
December. Okay, yeah. Because even then, that had only been you locked in for maybe 8 weeks or so. But anyway, though, so that was kind of what the catalyst was getting engaged.
Right. But then so in that like initial push of like or increase of motivation, like I remember like kind of rediscovered what I loved about the gym and like really focused on finding things that worked for me food wise, and that is kind of when I could see the like parallels between what I was doing before and now, which was that before like finding, and I'm probably like skipping ahead, but like, and as far as like tips that I have for people, like finding foods that you love instead of like forcing yourself to eat like healthy stuff that you think you should be eating, or even like what you put, like you put avocado on my meal plan and I was like, I do not like avocado. And so instead of like drenching something in mayonnaise, like we found ways for me to like put olive oil, like fry like my tuna in olive oil or whatever and stuff like that. And like I really ended up liking that. And so since July, I've changed my focus to it being that as like, how can I like look forward to the food that I'm eating? Because I mean, maybe for like 2 or 3 weeks, I can shovel down stuff that I absolutely despise. But like after the initial motivation fades, like I'm not going to want to do that anymore and I'm not going to do it. Like I just know that about myself. So how
I'm
can I?
I'm the same exact way. I'm the
Yeah,
same. Like
I think
everybody is.
probably everybody is. Yeah. I mean, I was going to say, like, I don't know anybody that's not. I think it probably takes, I don't know if somebody's just like a machine, I guess, but not me. So, and then it was the same with the gym is like, I rediscovered like what I loved about lifting. I love doing deadlifts. Like I don't know, I'm just like a weirdo. But I love deadlifts. And so I started like programming, like I do my own workout programming and like I started doing those a lot more and then just really structuring my workouts in a way that I loved them and like I felt strong and I did lifts that I really, really liked. And so then I was looking forward to going to the gym. And then my numbers started going up. Like I'm really motivated by feeling strong. And so my numbers started going back up, like as far as weights that I was moving. And so that just like fed itself, I guess, like that kind of kept that momentum going.
Oh yeah, no, and I got to see that firsthand in the gym. You being more excited to lift, and even if you weren't that excited to be there, you definitely get after it every single time we train together, which is always great. And I think that's a shift that I don't want to say all females are this way because they're definitely not. I mean, Cameron's on here; she loves being strong. Chris is on here; she loves being strong. But I think majority of the females, at least that come to me, they don't. Their goal is not to come in and get strong. Their goal is to usually lose body fat and that type of stuff. But I think if everybody in here just came in here and said that I'm going to start working on getting stronger, just like we've seen with you, body composition changes like that. You
Okay.
know, it usually the scale is going to change as well, but even if the scale doesn't change, if your body composition is changing, if you look like you lost 20 pounds, then you essentially lost 20 pounds,
Yeah, 100%.
So I think if everybody, if you're still listening at this point, if you can focus on just getting stronger, if you're actually using the app to track, like, oh my God, I'm doubling my weight on, bicep curls or bench press or whatever the case is, if you are actually monitoring that stuff and actually doing it, number one, correctly, but then doing it to get stronger each and every day that you're in the gym, and your food's aligned with that, you're going to see a lot of good results. If you're going in there and it says do 10 reps and 10 reps really easy for you, but you're like, oh, check the box, I did 10 reps, nothing's going to change. Yes, it's better than doing nothing and just sitting on the couch. Yes, you're still moving your body and you're getting your heart rate up a little bit, but if we want to change our physique, we got to do shit to our physique that our body's not comfortable with. And so that's Erika. I mean, you said that, case in point. So I'm happy that you communicated about the foods that you didn't like. We found workarounds with that stuff. That's really, really key, instead of just, suffering in silence. Same thing with the workouts as well. You're like, hey, I want to do some more deadlifts. I want to do this or that, which I don't always program in because not everybody does know how to do it correctly. And with you, I've been able to do it there with you in person. So I'm like, okay, I trust she can go crush this without, getting hurt and being out of the gym for 2 or 3 weeks at a time. You're able to kind of mix that stuff in. And again, all that stuff kind of started with communication, and then you're executing it now. And now I think you've got great momentum going that I don't see slowing down, because you feel better in every way, top to bottom, every shape and form with it, by being more consistent like this. And you're not having to rework your entire life. And it's not like is this taking away from anything that you're doing in life?
No, and I
Yeah,
think
or eating well or sleeping well, is that taking away from anything?
no,
No.
definitely not.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing was before it was like some of the time, like specifically with the workout stuff, like I was so burnt out on it, and it was so not like it became something that I just did not enjoy. And so I was just looking for an out basically. And if I had like a bad, I shouldn't use that word, but like if I ate off of my plan, or if I just had like a cheat meal,
Yeah.
then that would be the excuse that I needed to like be like, oh well, I already ruined it, so might as well just eat whatever I want for 2 or 3 weeks or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
So, but now it's like I don't like what I'm eating and how I'm working out, like is not like I actually look forward to it.
Mm.
And so it's not hard for me to get back on track, because it's not like I don't feel like I'm punishing myself or it's something I'm
Yeah.
dreading.
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very, very true. And I feel like, part of that was you gave it enough time though. Like you pushed through all those shitty days, last winter, into earlier in 2022. Like you pushed through some of those shitty days. You still got in there. You still treaded water long enough for you to finally get to the point where the doors kind of opened for you. If you had, because obviously it was difficult for those first 6 months or so with TLF, and just you kind of re-entering that phase, or that journey. And so, it'd been easy. A lot of people would do the same thing. They'd step in and be like, this is too hard, or I don't want to go to the gym, so I'm just not going to go to the gym. Like there's been plenty of days where I've seen you in there on a Sunday early this year that you did not want to be there. Like I could tell by the energy you just didn't want to be there, but you were still there and you were still getting yourself to the gym. And because you went on those days where you didn't want to go, because you got in even 10% of a workout versus 0% of a workout, that's led you to this point right here. And I think that's what people get stuck up on, is that there's a lot of times where you are not motivated, but you continue to check in, you continue to show up on the days that you had the time to, essentially. And that's opened the doors for you getting to this point now, where now you're thriving. I think that's where people have a misconception of it's going to be easy. And if it's not easy, then screw it. Like it's never going to get easy. And that's just never the case. It starts hard until we kind of get deeper into it. So that's awesome. And so you've obviously crushed it. I don't know exactly how the scales change, but I posted progress pictures and everything has been awesome seeing all that progress. Now, in terms of kind of looking ahead about where we're going, I'm looking at my notes here. What are your, I think we know your current goals. So your current goals, you got a wedding in July. So that's one of your big things that you're working towards. Prior to that, you have the shorter checkpoint of California, and that's in February.
Correct.
Very, very cool. So you got 2 or 3 months till then. So you got these short-term goals and long-term goals. If if you're listening to this and you don't have a short-term horizon goal and a longer term as well, this is stuff you want to start reflecting on and try to set up things. I've got actually multiple photographers, not that everybody here wants to do a photo shoot, but that is an added thing. I know that was probably the most locked in I've ever seen Nicole on nutrition and working out and stuff like that, is when we had a photo shoot to do. So, I mean, that's always an option. A vacation's always an option. If you can plan these things in there, that's always good. Having an accountability partner that, hey, me and so-and-so are going to try to, start this journey together and see where we can get to by summertime. And so if you're not doing it totally by yourself, or if you have a date, that always helps as well with it. So then goal wise for you, Erika, not so much like a weight goal or anything like that, but we know you have those things to work towards too, but what is like the next 5 years? Like, where do you want to be at? And then essentially, I guess what I want to ask is what's the person you want to be in 5 years when it comes to health and fitness, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I would like to be like maintaining, obviously, like after I get to a certain point. Like I thought before, I thought about like competing in kind of going that route, but I just don't think that's sustainable for me. And so I would like to like be living like the sustainability piece out in 5 years. I mean, I would like to be continuing to lift and get stronger there, but like as far as my eating and stuff, like I would just like it to be like really balanced. I mean, I don't want to be, counting macros every single day.
No, yeah.
But I want to have,
More effortless, probably, right?
yeah, right.
Like,
Yeah.
you've got habits in place, you got routines in place. A lot of that stuff becomes pretty automatic, like just things that you do, whether it be certain foods that you're prepping all the time, certain days you're going grocery store shopping, but it becomes, and I think it's getting closer and closer to becoming just kind of part of what you do. Like, it's not this super rigid thing anymore. It's just that this is what I do, and that's how I like to live, and because I like to feel good, and by doing these couple things, it makes me feel good. So why would I stop doing them? I think a big challenge for both you and myself, as we get older, as we get deeper into each of our relationships, if kids are on the horizon and stuff like that, that to me, that's going to be one big wrench that I'm excited to kind of conquer. And plus it'll help me be a better coach of those with kids in here and stuff like that. But so I think that makes sense. And then probably the same thing in 5 years, same thing would be in 10 years and in 20 years, is we want to maintain, this healthy lifestyle, healthy routine with balance in all shapes and forms, still thriving, still able to kind of do everything you're doing, I think is awesome. Do you have anything to add to that? I might have just rambled a little bit. I don't know.
No, no, I mean, I agree with all of that stuff, what you said about kids. My partner and I will probably start trying to have kids within the next few years. And I mean, yeah, that's something that's on my mind too, about just figuring out, because I mean, that's a lot of, my time will be quite differently structured. And my energy will look a lot different. So
Yeah.
being able to navigate that, I think is something that is a goal of mine.
Yeah. Well, and when, I always talk about it as well. It's so much easier to tread water than to get it, lose it, and then get it back again. Kind of like what you've had with this. And I think this year has been a good example of, during the worst times, we tread water, we control what we can. If we had a bad week last week, let's fucking crush it this week, commit to that. So, treading water during the worst times is always key. And then taking big strides in those other times. But, I kind of look at this as phases as well, because everybody in here is either like pre-kids, during kids, or post-kids. And I feel like there's something to be said for each of those phases. You're currently in the pre-kid phase. So what's important to you right now is getting your health as in best condition as possible, so you can enter motherhood in the best physical state, the best mental state, the best emotional state. And if your physical state is completely out of whack, that's obviously going to make it harder to be in the best emotional and mental state and everything else. So kind of giving all three of those things in check pre-kids is very important, because again, once we have those kids, much easier to maintain it through that time and tread water during maybe those first few years, versus not having it together. And now you're trying to make yourself healthier mentally, physically, emotionally, all that stuff. And you're taking care of a newborn, and you're taking care of a 3-year-old that's running around, or a 7-year-old that's going to soccer practice, all that good stuff. So I feel like it's important to take care of yourself beforehand. And if you're in the middle of having kids, it's important because you've got children that are looking up to you, and your habits will be their habits. And then post kids, well, now we got grandchildren to look at. Or now it's like, well, nobody else is in the house. I have nothing but time to take care of myself and put forth that effort. So I feel like in all three of those stages, it's super important. So, what's going to be cool is I get to kind of see you go through all those steps and see you crush it on every single one of them. And you're doing a good job with this first phase of it all. Outside of that, we can wrap up here in a few minutes. I think at this point, two things. Number one, as a therapist, is there any specific advice you'd give for mental health, or how mental health ties into what we're doing here with TLF? Anything specifically in that nature? I don't know if I'm throwing you off or not.
No, I'm thinking. So, I have a couple thoughts. So first being there's a quote from, oh, his name is escaping me, but he wrote a book called Atomic Habits.
Yeah.
Have you read that?
I have
So
not. I've had 1,000 people tell me to read it. I have not.
yeah, so there's a really great quote from that book, that's something along the lines of, we don't rise to our aspirations, we fall to the level of our systems. So, and I am constantly preaching stuff like this to my clients about all things, but it is applicable to fitness and health, I think, pretty clearly too. So just like, and I mean, this is a common thread like through this discussion too, but when there's a disruption, like you are not, it's unrealistic to think that you're going to be like absolutely killing it, like, all the time, like even through like really, really hard times and with a lot of stress and a lot of unforeseen like circumstances. So at that time, like you have to have the systems in place to be able to catch yourself and like build your own safety net essentially. And so like, what are you doing to build that safety net? Is there a safety net? Because for me, there wasn't, like a few years ago, and I figured that out the hard way. So for now, it's like, like meal prepping, that's like, building the safety net, making sure that I'm looking forward to, I have meals that I'm not tired of and that I actually enjoy. Yeah. And so, like all of those things, that's what I do, but that looks different for everybody. And so that's kind of the first thought. And then the second thing, um, so the story that we tell ourselves about what we're doing matters a lot. Like our thoughts have so much power. And if you're telling yourself, like, what's the story you're telling yourself about going to the gym, about eating your meals, about changing your lifestyle? Like, if you're telling yourself, like, well, I got to do this because, I don't, because somebody else is telling me to, or I feel like I should, or something, like um, that is not a very like fun story that anybody would want to be invested in. So like, whereas, and I think that is kind of what you can see that in the switch for me that's just happened in the last 7 months. Like I went from like, I need to do this because I need to look good for my wedding, which is like, yeah, okay, I guess. But then it turned into like, no, I want to like feel good and I want to feel confident and I want to like move in a way that makes me feel powerful.
Yeah.
And so that's a way different story, like even the language there. And so just that kind of like, what does your narrative sound like? Because if it's something that you're not invested in, and we can change that. That's something that we always have the power to change, to reframe how we think and to put a spin on it. That's within our control
I
all the
think I think it starts there as much as anywhere else,
time.
just by changing the dialogue that we have with ourselves.
Right.
Because if you're not changing that and you're trying to make all these actual physical changes, in terms of your routines and all the things you're doing, if the self dialogue there is negative, then that whatever you're doing is going to be very short lived.
It's just not sustainable.
Yeah, I mean, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you think that I'm not good enough to stick to this, well, you're not going to stick to it, because that's exactly what you just said. So that self-talk is huge. I think that's a good point that you just kind of pointed out with it. Two great pieces of advice with that. I love both those a whole lot. Any other specific? I think you've gave a lot of tips throughout this. I think one of the biggest things is finding foods that you enjoy, finding foods that you're looking forward to eating. My diet plans are to give you a good starting point. They're for us to kind of get our feet into it, start getting in the habit of meal prepping and actually have something to follow. They're good for showing you, here's what a well-rounded meal looks like. As a vegetarian, we got to make sure that your amino acid profile is balanced. You can't just have beans because it doesn't have the right, it doesn't make a complete protein. So that's why we need rice with it. That's why we need, whatever other proteins with it. So we got to make sure our meals are well-rounded. We got to make sure we're fueling ourselves properly. And once we get into that meal plan, then we kind of, okay, I'm getting tired of meal 2 or 3 or whatever the case is. That's why I'm giving you guys the freedom and the flexibility to, okay, let's start integrating some other things in here. One of my favorite things to do and what I recommend people do is think about some food you actually want this week and save that for dinner time. Save that for like the last meal of the day, but go ahead and log it. Log that first and work backwards to figure out everything else you're going to eat that day that now fits into your plan. But now you have this golden meal at the end of the day that you're looking forward to. I was actually going to make a social media post about that tomorrow, just about it's important to look forward to that last meal of the day. If you have your favorite meal of the day at 8 a.m., you've got nothing to look forward to the rest of the day. Now you're just,
yeah.
And in terms of eating my meals, while I enjoy all my meals, I mean, today I had 2 meals of 7 ounces of chicken and 4 ounces of broccoli. Like, I'm not looking forward to that meal. That isn't like getting me pumped up. I'm doing it 1, so I can have a little lower carbs this week, but then 2, so that tonight I can go have, I think I'm having chicken and rice and beans and avocado and some hot sauce on it and all the good stuff. And I like mixing in coconut oil. So like, it's gonna be a higher fat meal, higher carb meal. And I can look forward to that all day. If I had that for lunch, I'd be like, damn it, I'm hungry and I don't want just chicken and broccoli the rest of the day, but I'm saving that last meal. So I think you made some good points with that. Any other tips, advice, things that you struggle with at the very beginning that you think would be helpful? I'm always a big advocate for reading the client success packet that I send to everybody because there's a lot of good nuggets in there. I had one client, one person, actually, I sent it to him before he signed up. And he never signed up and was like, dude, I just follow everything you gave me in that client success packet and I lost 25 pounds.
Great.
I look great, feel great. And I'm like, that's fantastic. And I love that he told me that because I'm like, I'm never going to send that to somebody before they sign up.
Yeah. That was a learning experience for you.
Yeah, that's it.
I think the only other thing I would say is, and I think you and I talked about this one day when we were on the treadmill. The difference, like distinguishing between emotion versus value-based actions. And like really breaking down like what happens when we make each of those. There's like psychology to each of those things. So like if you expect to make an like to feel immediately gratified after making an emotion-based choice, like you're gonna be, or a value-based choice rather, like you're gonna be waiting for a long time. So like going to the gym and eating well is not like, that is a value-based choice for me. It's not an emotion. It's an emotion-based choice now because I want to, but when the emotion subside or the motivation subsides, which it always does, like it's in my values to, like you said, like have a health regimen that is, I'm modeling for my future children and feeling really good, feeling confident in myself and being able to like physically do the things, like travel the way that I want to. Like those things are way deeper than just like, I want to look good for my wedding. So like that stuff is that is the delayed gratification part that you need to like be mindful of, because if you're expecting to be like immediately rewarded and immediately gratified by this, lifestyle like all the time, then you're going to be really disappointed and you're going to burn out. So like there's got to be like a value based like kind of approach to it, and like you have to even know what your values are in order to do that. So
very, very true. And that's why I ask people, who do you want to be in 20 years? Because that is value based. Like I want to be the person that's active. When I'm 50 years old, I don't want to just be going home after work and just sitting on my ass on the couch. And like I've got plenty of people that I can name off the top of my head that I'm like, they would probably love to go on a hike, but they physically can't go on a hike. They're at the age they should be able to go on a hike, but they can't go on a hike. I'm like, I don't want my age to ever have to be a factor of that. I don't want my physical limitations to be something I could have easily controlled just by maintaining it. So that value base, I think, is important with that. And I think that you have, you're talking about all the mental structures you have in place, the mental processes you kind of go through that keep you on track when you're lacking motivation. And then obviously when motivation is there, then you're just that much more pumped up for it. But I think, if you can maintain the mental side of it, then everything else will follow. Your habits will follow, the physical progress will follow. And I think for everybody else as well is kind of flipping some of these mental switches is the key to sustainability and longevity. And that's why, not coming in here thinking that you're just going to accomplish all these goals in 8 weeks. is, I
Oh,
mean, you're going to be let down with that. This is a long-term game, and that's why check-ins are really important. That's why, Erika, your communication and every client's communication is so important, because you're really buying into the long-term process of it all and buying into the long-term changes you're trying to make versus I'm just here for a good time for a few
well,
weeks.
like you can't teach me better ways to like, problem solve and troubleshoot the barriers that I'm having if you don't even know what they are.
Exactly, 100%. I can't do my job if you're not allowing me to do my job, which is definitely key. But anyway, Erika, I mean, do you have anything else to add? You absolutely crushed it. I know you were a little bit nervous about being on, but you did fantastic. It's like you should do these more often. Cameron said
Oh,
thank you.
thank you. So, I mean, no, I don't really have anything else to add. Thank you for asking me to do this. It was fun.
Yeah, no, I'm proud of you, and I'm happy you were able to share your story. And I mean, Cameron, Gene, they heard it all. I know Chris was on here earlier, and everybody else who listens will definitely get something good out of it. You give a lot of good tips and advice. If anybody's ever struggling with anything, Erika is open for business. You can message me, and then I'll pass along the message to Erika, or find her on social media, Facebook, Instagram, all that good stuff. Erika Schlotthauer is her name. But anyway, thanks for being here, Erika. Have a great rest of your week. Everybody else, have a great rest of your week as well.
Bye, guys.
Bye, Erika. Thanks again.
Thanks.